Good evening. We're now returned to regular session from executive session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, in front of you, you've received the minutes from the last meeting. I need a motion for approval of those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Hancock.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Do we have anyone from the city here tonight? I don't see anyone. So let's move into public participation pursuant to our board policy. You have to be a resident, employee, or parent of the district to speak at a board meeting, and all statements must be directed to me, and we do have some limitations on what can be said. So at this point, I have one person that wants to speak tonight, Daniel Hancock. Is that you? Dan? Yep. Come on up, Dan.
Hello, my name's Dan Hancock. I live.
Just a second. I just want to remind you, you only have 3 minutes.
I'm a little hard of hearing.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
And can you tell us your address, please?
Okay. My name's Dan Hancock. I live at 67 Herman Avenue in Hamilton, Ohio. And the reason I'm here is I'm here to promote the field that you guys own at the end of Mark Avenue. It's just sitting there vacant and that. And the city and also Sarah Crothers would like to turn it into a city park for the youth. To put in a couple ball fields, soccer field, and the Cincinnati or the Hamilton Running Club would like to put a running track all the way around it. So we'd like to make it a park in that, so the youth in that can take it, because it's just sitting there vacant and it's not being used. You guys haven't used it in a couple of years and that. It's just sitting there, and I'd like to see it turn into a city park for all the youth in the area. And like I said, this Carla Fears has talked to you guys about it, and so the other couple of people on the city council have talked, and like I said, I'd like to promote it too, and see for the youth of the city, and also to make the park very viable.
Okay. Well, Mr. Holbrook, you want to respond?
Sure. We're always interested in looking for ways for our city and district to connect, and I haven't had any detailed conversations with the city. I knew of your interest in the park piece, and that's certainly something that we can discuss with city council on, you know, how we can go about possibly doing that. We have a number of properties throughout the district that we own that some are more valuable to us just due to location than others. And I do think that would be one piece of property that we would be open to having a discussion about.
Well, I thank you for your input there in that, and I hope we can move forward on it.
Yeah. Thank you. Board members, in front of you, you have the consent agenda for tonight.
I
Oh,
think.
did I jump right over you?
Yeah.
Well, I know you have a big announcement. Go ahead. Sorry.
Tonight, Mr. President, my superintendent's comments will be directed towards two different things. The first, I want to talk about our opening week and a half of school. In 32 years, this is one of the smoothest openings that I've experienced as a teacher, as a building administrator, and a central office administrator. After a fairly contentious negotiation with our HCTA bargaining unit, I'm happy to say we came to an agreement that I think all of us are happy that it's over, and it fairly compensates not only our teachers but recognizes them as well as our other employee groups for the very difficult times during the unprecedented unprecedented pandemic, and that's really important to us. going out into the buildings and watching our opening days, the staggered start was tremendously successful. I think it assisted young kids coming into our buildings for the first time to build a relationship with staff, to know where they go during the day. This district has a significant number of transitions, not only at the elementary level, but once you get to middle school and the freshman building and then going to the high school, those transitions a lot of times take a toll on students that we don't necessarily recognize. We saw some anxiety levels reduced by having the staggered start. I think it benefited our staff as well. They spend an inordinate amount of time building relationships that, quite frankly, are more difficult to build when you have 25 to 26 students in a classroom as opposed to 12 to 13. And so that group, our instructional assistants, our EAs, our clerical, our bus and transportation services have been tremendous during this transition. And so I couldn't be prouder to be just a small part of that. And I need to make sure that everybody recognizes that there was a lot of hard work put into that by all groups. And like I said, one of the smoothest starts in 32 years. The second announcement I have tonight, 8 years ago, I came to Hamilton City Schools, and I can still remember my first week. Someone said, "You need to go meet this new treasurer that you're going to be working with." And I said, "Okay." And I went up and I had a discussion with Bob Hancock, and it was my first introduction to Bob. And over the last 7+ years, I've had to work with Bob on a daily and weekly basis, and we've developed a relationship that's pretty close. Bob came to this district in 1993. The end of his first year, this district had $678 unencumbered for the year. Wow. He's leaving us with over $31 million. 28 years later. And that's due to a lot of hard work by a lot of different people. But as the treasurer, I'm sure his counsel and guidance was extremely, beneficial in taking this district through that pathway. And so tonight, I want to take a few minutes and recognize Bob and present him with this plaque for his 28+ years of service to the students, staff, and the community of Hamilton City Schools. You get to come up here, Bob.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure working with you, working with this board, the various boards, honestly, I've worked with over the years. I shared with Mike, and I'll do a name report here shortly. I shared with him today the financials that I found back in FY '95. It was my second year here. We had receipts of $42.4 million, disbursements of $42.8 million. We had a cash balance of about $510,000, and we had over $509,000 encumbrances. And that left you with a $678.47 in unencumbered balance. Had to borrow $1 million to get there. We borrowed $1.2 million the year before. I had a board member tell me, you had to borrow $1 million to $1.2 million. That's just the way you do it. Use all the resources. The very next year, we didn't borrow a dime. We found ways to move some expenditures from one year to the next legitimately and just to plan some things out. And, the board was very interested. How in the world did you pull that off? And we explained how we did it in our management of the money. And it was good we did, because fiscal caution, fiscal watch, those types of things were just getting started. They were coming down the pike in the next couple of years, and you weren't going to be able to cash flow borrow. So it was good we did that. The unencumbered balance the third year was $932.90, and in the fourth year I was here, $224.20. I told that to my fellow treasurers that I worked with at the time. They thought I was nuts. And I didn't really know any better. I came here at 31 years of age, and that's just the way this district had to operate. And then from there, things got gradually better as we worked within our budget year to year. And we really didn't hit what I consider the appropriate fund balance, which is about 25%, of about a 3-month carryover until FY18. And you're there right now, and you'll continue to be there for a few years as you're working through these ESSER dollars. So certainly, thank you for the recognition, and let's move on.
If I can, Mr. Hancock, I've worked with you as an administrator and as a board member, and I just want to thank you for, we've been in some difficult meetings together, sort of some lean years back in, if not that long ago, and you helped guide us through those areas, and it was always good to know that you were at the helm when it comes to finances. And I just appreciate all the leadership that you've shown in this district for such a period of time, because I know it's been tight. It's been very tight. So thank you very much for your dedication to this district.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bob, I've always said that you're the only guy I know that could get $1 out of a nickel. I really mean it.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the hard work you've done.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. It's been a pleasure. We haven't worked together that long, but really appreciate your leadership.
I've been with you for 2 boards now,
Yeah.
you should know that. And we went through the new elementary schools, and you were instrumental with the funding on that. Going up to Columbus and convincing them to give our previous levy credit for the matching dollars, and that saved the district a lot of money and a lot of headaches, and that was
Yes.
hard work on your part.
And other administrators as well. I remember when the board looked at me and Everett Mann at the time, who was the business manager, and said, these dollars have to count. Because they asked me that night, what does this governor's plan that just came out mean? And I said, it just means that levy you just passed, they're not gonna count a dime towards what we need to do. And we ended up changing that almost overnight, getting legislators involved. The expedited local partnership program came out of that. So it was good, interesting times.
Thanks, Bob. Board members, in front of you have a consent agenda for human resources, student services, technology, and pre-K-12 curriculum instruction. Do I have a motion to accept that consent agenda?
I'll make the motion, sir.
Mr. Hancock?
Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews? Yes. Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Board members, you also have a consent agenda in front of you for business operations and special education. Is there anything else we need to discuss on any of those? Hancock?
Mr.
Sorry, it's in my head, sorry.
No, this is a second consent agenda in which we're going to need to have a board member abstain due to
Okay.
some relationships.
Okay, that's fine. I need a motion to accept this consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Second? Mr. Hancock?
Mrs. Matthews? Yes. Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Abstain?
Mr. Davidson? Yes. Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mr. Hancock, it's to you.
Well, it's been a while since we've had an actual voting meeting, so we're going to have a couple financial reports for you. We'll start with the fiscal year end for last year. Instead of $678 left, we had $34.8 million left, which is a little bit better. Certainly, you're in that position right now because you have a positive financial impact from ESSER as those dollars are being worked through. And you know, as you look at your forecast, that that cliff falls in 25 or 26, and it's going to have to be managed. I'm confident this district will be able to do that. But for June last year, that was the end of the fiscal year, we anticipated $98.7 million. We received $99.5 million, $728,188 better than planned, which is always the side we like to be on because that's just a much easier discussion with your board. that you actually had more money than you were hoping you would have. A little bit in state funding on the unrestricted side, a little more than I anticipated on the restricted side. I thought we should have been a little closer there, but that was 304,000 to the good. Again, thankfully, on the right side, we're on there. And then all other operating revenue came in 296,000, better than planned. And that one's okay because that was a tricky one. You don't know exactly the timing on some of the other operating revenue and when it will hit, and you certainly don't want to be overestimated. You received 4.2 million 2 years ago, 3.485 million last year, and we fell in between this year at 3.579. On the expenditure side, we anticipated 95.2 million. We spent 94.8 million. So we spent 403,468 less than anticipated. And on this side of the equation, I was pleased all the way down on the variances. We're 83,918 better than planned or lower than planned on salaries. When you're dealing with $57.4 million, that's running fairly close. 190,909 on fringe benefits. To the good, again, to the good, meaning we were lower than anticipated. Purchase services, 223,065. Tickled to death with that number coming in on the right side of it, with all the things that happened in purchase services this year, because you had the school funding formula change. There was a lot of movement there. That number was down quite a bit from previous years. It was 19.6 million the previous year, only came in at 14 million this year. So you had a lot of things going on to account for, and we were able to do that. Supplies, materials, capital outlay, and other objects were not significant differences in comparison to the others. So overall, we came in a little over $1 million better than planned, which is good because we're going to need it moving forward. And that is what June showed us. We're off and running in July. You can see those reports as well back there. There's a similar report. At this point, you only look at where were you this year compared to the previous 2 years. We're not really into estimates too much at this point. We're just starting to get the trend and look at those. We're working on the forecast update with Mr. Frazier, and that work is ongoing, and we'll make sure that we get that off to a good, strong start for the district going into the new year. So I would entertain any questions you might have on the financial reports for June or July.
Board members? At this point, we'll take a motion to approve the finance agenda.
Second.
Mr. Hancock?
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Sprague?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson? Mr. Isgro?
Yes.
Mrs. Matthews?
As there's no other business in front of the board at this point, our next meeting is on September 8th. We will be going into executive session at that time, but that's our next meeting. So at this time, I'd like to adjourn our meeting. I need a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.